Today, we're talking about a name that didn't just break the glass ceiling, it soared right through it, straight into orbit. Valentina Tereshkova. Now, you probably know her for that one single historic flight, but believe me, her full story, it's a universe all its own. But here's the real question, the one at the heart of the whole thing. How did a textile factory worker, of all things, become the first woman in space? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? And the answer, well, it's this incredible mix of her own personal ambition and, you guessed it, the high-stakes political chessboard of the Cold War.
All right, so let's rewind. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning, to a world that was miles away from space capsules and mission control, to see just how much of an unlikely candidate she truly was. So picture this. In the late 1950s, her life was all about hard industrial work. I mean, she went from a tire factory as a teenager to a textile mill in Yaroslav in central Russia. At this point in her life, space travel, it wasn't just unlikely, it was completely unimaginable. But she had a secret. While she was working at the factory, she was also training as a competitive parachutist. And get this, she made her first jump when she was 22, and she kept it all hidden from her family. Little did she know, this secret hobby, well, it was about to become her ticket to the stars.
And this quote right here, it really captures the driving force behind the whole opportunity. You have to remember, the space race was at an absolute fever pitch. After Yuri Gagarin's historic flight, rumors started spreading that America was training female astronauts. For Nikolai Kamenin, the guy in charge of cosmonaut training, there was just no way he was going to let an American woman be first. This wasn't just about science or exploration, it was a political necessity.
So that intense political pressure kicked off this urgent, top-secret search. They needed a female cosmonaut, and they needed her now. But she couldn't just be anyone. She had to be a powerful symbol for the entire Soviet Union.
And the criteria they set out were incredibly specific. You had to be a parachutist, under 30 years old, and meet these really strict height and weight limits to even fit inside the tiny Vostok capsule. And just like that, Tereshkova's secret hobby made her a perfect fit. Out of over 400 applicants, she made the cut, becoming one of just 5 women selected for this brand new elite group.
But here's the thing, it wasn't just her skydiving skills. Tereshkova was also, you could say, politically perfect. Her dad was a tractor driver and a war hero who died defending the motherland. She was this self-made woman from a humble background. I mean, she was the ultimate Soviet success story. Even Premier Nikita Khrushchev himself saw the massive propaganda value and gave her his personal stamp of approval.
So you can imagine, the expectations were just enormous. Kamenin, the same guy who insisted they send a woman to space, even gave her a nickname. He called her Gagarin in a skirt. And that, right there, just perfectly sums up both the pride and the unbelievable pressure she was under to live up to the legacy of the first man in space.
Okay, and that brings us to the mission itself, the flight of Vostok 6. This wasn't just another test of technology. No, this was the moment she was going to make history.
And just look at this is the actual Vostok 6 capsule. I mean, can you imagine being sealed inside that tiny sphere? On the morning of June 16, 1963, after a tense 2-hour countdown, the rocket ignited, and Valentina Tereshkova launched straight into the unknown.
So she gets into orbit, and she radios back down to Earth. Her call sign was Chaika, which is Russian for seagull. And in that one moment, the factory worker from Yaroslavl became a voice from the heavens, sharing this absolutely awe-inspiring view of our planet with the entire world.
And here's something amazing. She was only 26 years old. Just think about that for a second. That's a record that still stands to this day, the youngest woman ever to fly in space.
Over the next 3 days, she circled the globe 48 times. Now, to put that into perspective for you, with that one single flight, she logged more time in space than all of the American astronauts combined up to that point. Wow!
And this next fact might be her most unique and enduring record of all. Even today, after all these decades of space exploration, Valentina Tereshkova remains the one and only woman to have ever flown a solo space mission.
So when she came back down to Earth, her life changed forever. I mean, overnight. She wasn't just a cosmonaut anymore. She was a global symbol. And in a lot of ways, her public journey was really just getting started.
Her new role was really two-sided. On one hand, she was this massive national hero. You see her here celebrated with Khrushchev. But on the other hand, she was an international figure, meeting people like American astronaut Neil Armstrong. She kind of became this bridge between two worlds, this universally admired person, even at the absolute height of the Cold War.
And her life just became a total whirlwind of public duties. The Soviet government basically sent her on this non-stop world tour. In just the first 7 years after her flight, she took 42 trips abroad. She was, for all intents and purposes, the celebrated face of the Soviet state.
But here's the thing. Tereshkova wanted to keep flying. She really did. She even went and graduated from the Air Force Engineering Academy so she could re-qualify for new missions. But after the tragic death of Yuri Gagarin in a training accident, the state just wasn't willing to risk losing another national hero. Her superiors, well, they had a different plan for her. Her space career was over. Just like that.
And that pivot, well, that marked the beginning of the longest chapter of her public life. It was the start of a career in politics that would stretch from the height of the Soviet Union all the way to the Russia we know today.
So her political career just grew and grew. In the 70s, she became a high-ranking member of the Supreme Soviet. After retiring from the Air Force as a major general, her political life just kept going. In 2011, she was elected to Russia's State Duma, and more recently, she's made headlines for proposing that 2020 constitutional amendment to reset presidential term limits. And in 2022, she was sanctioned by the US and the EU for her public support of the invasion of Ukraine.
And that brings us right up to today. Now in her late 80s, Valentina Tereshkova is no historical relic, not at all. She is still an active and really influential member of Russia's ruling party, still a key player on the same political stage she first stepped onto more than 50 years ago.
So where does that leave us? With a really complex legacy, right? It's a story of these incredible contrasts, from factory worker to space pioneer, from global icon to, for some, a controversial politician. So I'll leave you with this question. What is Valentina Tereshkova's true legacy? Is she a trailblazing pioneer, a devoted patriot, or a calculating politician? You know, the answer might just depend on which part of her long and truly extraordinary life you choose to focus on.